I promise I didn't engineer this story just for this specific day, but here we are. So, my grandma loves to tell this story about me as a child, where we were on an airplane and she pointed out another little girl that was sitting in an aisle across the way and said, look how cute that little girl is. And I said, not as cute as me. Dead serious. So I guess you could say I had a pretty strong sense of self as a child. I loved to be the center of attention on stage, putting on plays of all varieties where my little brother dressed up in princess costumes and directing the whole thing and requiring my entire family to watch. At some point, I think I lost touch with that sense of self, and it's just, I think it happens to everybody a little bit in life, but one thing about me is I grew up in a very small southern conservative town and was raised by two liberal Jews who grew up in the Northeast. So that was fun. I spent most of my life trying desperately to fit in. Unfortunately for me, my mother was sort of my arch nemesis in that matter, my parents as a whole, but some of the things that didn't quite go out as planned were, for example, I requested a debutante ball and instead I got a bat mitzvah. I wanted to go into the local Abercrombie to buy the latest trendy clothes. My mother wanted to inform the shirtless male employees that they were perpetuating eating disorders in men. I wanted my 9th grade boyfriend to think I came from a nice, normal family, and my mom began their road trip together by announcing, well, I just want to let you know that Lissy told me that I can't say the words penis or vagina this entire ride. Just so you know. Thanks, Mom. She had a funny way of operating in those days. She was a self-proclaimed feminist, which, according to everyone I heard, that meant lesbian. And, which was very confusing to me for a number of reasons. Mainly my dad. But she liked to say things regularly around the house like, just because I have a vagina doesn't mean I have to take out the trash. Or what her signature pose, which would happen at random, both arms raised above head in a 45-degree angle, signaling V for vagina, just in case you didn't know she had one. So it was a weird dynamic. I felt like I wasn't really sure what was going on there, but, it didn't help me to fit in per se, and often felt like I was swimming upstream, so to speak, because what was happening outside of my house, unsurprisingly, was quite different. And confusing even more so because of the different ways that I was then taught to feel about being a woman. A lot of those messages kind of were received at school. So I remember being in 5th grade and we had this thing called a metric Olympics, which basically was just like an outdoor obstacle course. And in the middle, or at the beginning of that event, my teacher decided that my shorts were too short for my 11-year-old body and decided to pull me out from the event and sort of publicly shame me and then send me to the Lost and Found to wear sweaty, dirty, All Saints Episcopal Day school sweatpants. You might recall I was Jewish. Another instance was in middle school when the dean of the students would walk the halls during class change with a Sharpie, and any exposed skin, he would take a Sharpie and draw a line on your back, sort of marking you as being inappropriate. And I just sort of learned that whoever I wanted to be, whoever I was too much, too something, not gonna fit in no matter what I did. I couldn't find where I belonged, but I felt like wherever I was an outsider, and I just wanted to make myself small. In January of 2017, I was living in DC, and my mom drove up for the Women's March. Now, marching in general, for any sort of reason, was not something I'd ever considered doing. I mean, if I even had an opinion that strong on anything, I would have tried to change it or hide it, or certainly not flown a flag that indicated I had something to say, especially if it was controversial. That's how I lived my life. And so the idea of doing this was pretty complicated. On top of the fact that I have a gross, I don't really like crowds. And so marching in the streets with 500,000 people in DC didn't exactly speak to me. But nonetheless, she was coming, and we were going. And so she was ready to walk out the door and go to the march. I was still trying to calm the raging anxiety inside of me and told her to go ahead and I would meet her there. I started thinking about what it would be like to go out, and why, like, would I be embarrassed? Would I see her with her V in the air and feel shame, you know? Would everyone be doing that? Would I be even more ashamed of my behavior to think that that was a shameful thing to do? I don't know. What was it going to be like to just stand up for something? What would people think about me? But then on the other hand, I thought about why people were marching and what was at stake and how I felt my whole life in my body. And in that moment, I decided to go. So I decided I took a deep breath, and I squeezed my way into the most packed metro car I have ever seen in my entire life. I thought I was going to suffocate or be swallowed whole. And just as I was about to break into a full-blown panic attack, the car sort of jolted to the side, and I lost my footing. And I fell into one of the women next to me. And she just sort of smiled and picked me up and said, "We've got you." And I just felt in that moment tears welling up inside of me, because it dawned on me that these women were not the enemy, and that they were the reason I was going to be safe. And it was the first time I'd ever felt like that, just for being myself, that I was held and safe and supported. And looking at all these women in their pink knitted pussy hats, which would have gone real well in my hometown, I felt release. And the day ended, and I didn't end up spending all that much time marching with my mom, but I was changed. For the first time, I felt proud of my mom. I also felt sorrow for her, because she didn't have this metro car full of women to support her, to hold her up. She was doing it, and often she was fighting this battle alone, and often ostracized for it. Today, I feel proud to be a woman in this body. I feel like I can do anything. 2 years ago, I shaved my head. I have become a master of power tools. I love a good chainsaw. I have climbed literal mountains, and it turns out I love to fold laundry in very neat piles, and I'm an excellent baker. And I love all of these things about myself and who I've been able to become. But most importantly, I never intend to walk through life trying to make myself small. Thank you.